Hello, welcome to another episode of AWS She Builds Tech Skills here in North America. Today I am your host. My name is Kandyce Bohannon, and as usual, we're here bringing you some cool technical content built by or shown by women builders. So really excited to be with you for another episode today. And today we have one of the core team members, Fathima, joining us for this show. So Fathima, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? And while we're doing that, everybody, welcome to our stream and, let us know where you're actually calling in from. So with that, Fathima, where are you from?
Thank you. Hey, Candice. Thank you. I'm based out of Northern Virginia. Name is Fathima Kamal. I'm a principal storage specialist SA in AWS. I work with FSI financial service in the financial services industry, and I'm deeply involved in building ransomware resilient architectures for our financial services customers. So we are here to discuss about something very important, which is about ransomware resiliency.
Nice. This is definitely it's definitely a very important topic that we go through. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting and technical. So I'm excited to see what we can do, what you can show us as far as like keeping all of our stuff safe.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't say I'm joining from the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, and it got cold this weekend. So I'm actually wearing a hoodie. Happy to be wearing a hoodie again, back in my uniform, my developer uniform. We also have someone calling in from Vienna.
Yeah, nice.
So I would assume it's nice there. So thank you. Thanks for being for watching today.
Yeah.
So also for the audience, like, let's just kind of kick it off and see if we can get some more interaction going here. Like, how confident are you today in your current backup strategy? Just on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you, and do you have any big concerns? If you have any questions for Fathima as we go through, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And as we kick things off, Fathima, can you explain what this really means? Like, what is this ransomware thing, and what does it mean? Just so we have a little bit of context.
Okay, so to get things started, right, let's talk about the framework that is defined by the National Institute for Security, right, NIST. There is a cybersecurity framework, and it's built on 5 pillars, like 5 main functions. One is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Most of the times, if you see organizations, they work a lot with how to identify, how to detect, and how to mitigate and everything. But very little emphasis is placed on how to recover, because that's almost the overlooked pillar in the NIST cybersecurity framework. So what essentially happens is when you get hit by ransomware, you want to be able to recover. And as customers have understood that preventing a ransomware event is inevitable, but preparing for recovery is of paramount importance, right? So you want to have that recoverability, and you want to have an architecture designed to make sure that you're ready to recover. So ransomware, as everybody has heard it, there are like 2 types of ransomware. You have either the crypto ransomware or the locker ransomware. Crypto is where they'll come after your files, and they'll re-encrypt your files. So even if you have those backups, if they are re-encrypted, they are not useful to you, right? So, and then you have to pay a ransom to get your files de-encrypted. Whereas the locker ransomware is where they will come and lock your files. So you don't have access to them. They'll deny the access. And what essentially has to happen is you have to pay the ransom to regain access. So either ways, they're looking for ransom. And right now in the industry, like in the market, there is ransomware as a service. It's actually a service, and there are bad actors contributing to this, and it's only getting sophisticated by the day. So so since you're not able to prevent one, the best source of action is make sure you have a recoverability scenario and you have a strategy for it.
Crazy. So it's like as you were talking about that, I was picturing like the little notes that people leave, like back in the day, like on shows and stuff like that. And it's like cut out from the magazine, all the different letters and stuff.
Yeah.
It was $1 million. Okay.
Pretty much. Pay me $1 million for your files.
Yeah, crazy. So
Yeah,
So we're talking mostly about backup. We have
that's
an
right.
AWS service for that. We have an AWS
Yes,
service for darn near everything.
absolutely.
How does AWS backup play into the ransomware?
Sure. So the service that we use is AWS Backup, and it is a fully managed service from AWS, and it pretty much orchestrates or integrates with other AWS services, and it will do the backups for you. Along with just doing the backups, it also has additional features where it will. You can put in a logical air gap vault, and that's what we are going to talk about. How are you going to set up a lag vault, which is a logical air gap vault, because ultimately you want your backups to be air gapped, to have minimum access, to have an approval system, and it's ready for recovery. Because if your source account is compromised, you want to be able to access these backups from a different account. And all of this can be orchestrated using AWS Backup for different services across AWS.
Awesome. Okay, so for anyone in the audience, let us know. Have you ever used AWS Backup? Have you ever been attacked by ransomware? No details, but how familiar are you with these topics? We do have a few blogs and references that we'll share along the way. You mentioned, I like that lag vault,
Yeah,
logically air
air
gap
gap
vault.
vault. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we can get the demo started right now. I'm
awesome,
going to show you how to set this all up. All right.
great.
So what we are seeing here is, Candice, we're seeing the AWS console, and you pretty much go to AWS Backup. So right now I'm in my management account. There are a couple of things you want to set up before you start the entire configuration for a cyber resilient architecture, right? So if I have to talk about AWS Backup, these are some of the services it supports as of today. So as you can see, you can back up your Aurora databases, CloudFormation, DocumentDB, distributed SQL, Aurora DSQL, DynamoDB, EBS, EC2, EFS. All of the storage services are there. The databases, some of the database services are there. And of course, S3 is there. And we also have VMware virtual machines. So if you have anything on premises that needs to be backed up, we can do it through AWS Backup. So that's what we have using AWS Backup. So we have around 20 to 22 services that we support, and it's an ever-growing list. So every year, the service team is adding more support for more services. Apart from that, you don't want to do anything on your using your management account. So you always want a delegated account, right? So you can pretty much delegate an administrator account to a particular account and have all of your operations of AWS Backup run through it, because you don't want the root of your management account to be hacked, right? To lose access. So that's one of the best practices that we often talk about. So apart from that, if you want to have a lot of the features enabled for AWS Backup, you have to do it under the management account or the delegated account, and make sure all of these are turned on, like your cross-account backup, because when we want to set it up for a resilient architecture, cyber resilient architecture, we want to take it across account. So you want to turn on for cross-account backup.
And so that means not just in this account that we want to put it in a different account so that we'll still
Yeah.
have access to it. That's what that means, right?
Yeah, so this means we want to do it in the management account or the delegated account, and all your workload accounts that you have it'll inherit all of these policies, and it'll be able to do all of those cross-account backups.
Cool. Got it.
And the multi-party approval is one of the new features that was released for Logical Air Gap Vault. And what this means is that when it is time to restore or recover from a vault, you want to have a multi-party approval system. You will put in a quorum of users, and you'll say that at least 3 users need to approve this operation to restore from this vault. So if there is an event, not anybody can go restore and do anything with those resources. There is a quorum of users that are assigned, and that is what is multi-party approval. And you have to turn it on here to enable that in the other accounts. So that's what we have with AWS Backup. So let's say I go to my workload account. Workload account is typically where I want to run all of my workloads. I could have one workload account, or I could have N workload accounts. Typically, I have seen customers have over 2,000 workload accounts and AWS Backup backing up across 2,000 accounts. So think of it at scale, right? You can't go into every single one of these accounts to perform these backups, especially of your crown jewel. So you typically have a centralized system where you can do it at the org level and you can pretty much select the accounts and you can back them all using tags. So if any of those EBS volumes or S3 buckets have those tags saying that, okay, backup, they will all get backed up by the rule that we define. And that's to think of it in a centralized administration point of view and at an enterprise point of view. So if I go into my AWS backup on my one of my workload account, I can pretty much go to the dashboard and see all of those jobs that worked or failed or expired, etc. But typically, what I do is you can create a backup plan. And to create a backup plan, you click on backup plan. You can build a new backup plan. And let's just say I do a backup called test, and I'm going to do a rule name of daily. And I have a vault. Now, vault is where all of these backups get stored. It's like a logical construct. The vault is like where when you want to restore from, you go to a vault and you recover from a vault. That's just the definition of the vault. Now, a logically air gap vault is a different type of vault that has additional features. And I will be going through that in a detailed manner. But let me just go through this backup plan rule. So here I can choose, what vault I want to send it. So now it's local. So I'm in Northern Virginia and it's gonna create there is a vault called S3 backups, and the backup that I'm going to start right now will just go into this vault. And I can define my backup window. I can define my life cycle. It's not supported for a lot of resources. Right now, it's supported for CloudFormation, DynamoDB, and with advanced features like EFS, SAP HANA, TimeStream, and virtual VMware virtual machines. So this is not right now supported for all services. So you can define how many days you want to keep that backup. For just S3 and EBS, there's backup indexes. So if you're like backing up a huge bucket and it has like multiple prefixes, you want to have them indexed, right? And especially when you want to restore. So that functionality is now offered in just two of those services. Apart from that, you can also copy to a destination. So when you think about, data protection, think of it like you want a local copy, just so if there is an accidental deletion or, something that went wrong, you want to be able to quickly restore, right? So that's your quick RTO. Your RTO should be in minutes. Then you want to think about a region level availability. So if a region is not available, you want to be able to have your backups stored in a different region so you can bring up your services either in a different regions and there is less that's typically business continuity is what we're talking about here. The third option is your cyber vault, where you're taking it to a different account and making sure that you segregate all of the permissions and make sure it's not accessible to everybody, because unlike a disaster recovery scenario where everybody used to have access to the disaster recovery side, a cyber resilient architecture is where nobody has access and very few people have access to it. So that is called the 3211 kind of a data protection model that we advocate for: 3 copies of data in 2 different locations, and one of them is in an isolated bunker account or recovery account kind of a scenario.
Okay.
So you create a plan. And when you create a plan, this is how it'll show up. You can just pretty much see. And once you create a plan, you can assign resources as to, what are the resources you want to back up. And that's when you go and say, all right, so let me put in a resource assignment name. Let me choose an IAM role, or you can use the default role that AWS Backup would assign. And then include all resource types and add tags, right? So if you have tagged all your EBS volumes or your S3 buckets or your RDS databases with a particular tag, you could just say that anything with these tags will get backed up, and they are automatically picked up for backup every time the schedule runs based on what we defined in that configuration. Or you can include specific resource types, like I only want my S3 backup or S3 bucket to be backed up, right? And then I can pretty much choose which S3 bucket I want to back up to. So you can go at a granular level as to how you want your backups to go about, and that's typically how you run a backup of of any resources for that point. You can either run it on demand, like right now, or I can do it using a predefined plan. Any questions so far?
Well, so tags. Let's talk about tags just for a second. I was a DevOps engineer before I was here. And sometimes people get really complicated tagging sort of situations. I
Yeah,
could see one that I would definitely use in there would be like prod, right? I would want my prod stuff to be backed up.
right.
What kind of stuff do you see people use there on the tags when they're making these rules?
So, in a production environment, I see a lot of names with a lot of tag values with the workload name to help them identify, yeah, if it is some important workload and the resources are tagged with that appropriate tag names, they are easily, you can easily define that, saying that okay, anything for this workload with the resources with that particular tag name can be picked up for backup, right? There's also another thing that I have come across where customers miss tagging the resources and the backups don't happen. And when they are at a critical point to restore, they realize that, oh, my backup's not happened because I did not tag my resources and my backup plan is based off of tags, right? So that's you don't want to be in that in that fix. So what AWS Backup also does is it integrates with AWS Config, and we provide something called an audit manager. And you can run this audit very regularly with AWS Backup. So here is what is Audit Manager. You can run this with AWS Backup to show that, okay, what are the resources that are protected by this backup plan, right? So then it'll show you all the resources that are not protected, and you are catching it ahead of time instead of facing it when you're really in a situation. So that has happened, and I've seen that. But otherwise, there are also other frameworks, and this is another feature within AWS Backup primarily for governance and auditing purpose, right? So if you have a regular auditing of your backup resources, and it's a very crucial thing because a lot of the ransomware insurance that companies, organizations have to buy is based off of all this recoverability and what do they have set up so far. So these controls, these 11 predefined controls, were put in place just to have those auditing check done.
So you mentioned RTO, which is recovery time
Time
objective.
objective.
We talk about RPO, recovery point objective. Do you help people come up with those as well, or do they need to have those in place before they start to make the rules? Like, how do those play into your back?
Yeah, so the first question, literally, when I sit in these data protection conversation is give me your RTO and RPO because it's defined differently for different workloads, right? So if they have a tier one or tier zero workload, the RTO RPO is literally in seconds or minutes. And that time I'm not going to say, let's talk about your data backup because that's not the strategy we want to go for you, right? So if your RTO and RPOs are like in the hours, like 5, 6 hours, because with backup, what you're getting is you have to restore. And after the restore, you have to go through a recovery process too. So that adds a bit of RTO to your whole model. So you have to really think about define this RTO and RPO clearly before we start off on the data protection conversation. That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a comment that just came in from D Singh, and his server got ransomware attacked today. So it's happening all the time. And
Yeah,
so this is timely, a very timely episode for you, D
absolutely.
Singh. Yeah, hopefully you learned something here.
True. So, but to talk about it further, so I talked about the vault and how the regular vault is basically a construct, a logical construct which holds the recovery points or backups, and it stays in that particular account in that particular region. So if that account is compromised, there you go, your backups are in that particular vault. But then what you have is you can put a vault lock. This is where you are making the backups immutable. Immutability is where nobody can re-encrypt your backup, nobody can alter it, delete it, modify it until that maximum retention period is reached. And there are two types of compliance, like this compliance mode and legal mode. Legal mode is more for the auditing where the administrator can go and modify it, But if you put it in compliance mode, nobody can do anything. Even AWS can't change that setting. So if you say 7 years on this vault lock, and the data will stay there for 7 years, nobody can do anything about it. So that's what is the immutability part within the vault.
Nice. Okay.
So once we know that within a vault, you can make data immutable using putting a lock on it, right? Just like how you put it on an S3 object lock. Now, what is create logical air gap vault? So when you want to create a regular vault, all you're doing is, giving it a name. You can either use the default encryption key, or you can use the customer managed key. But if you're copying it across regions or across accounts, just remember that keys are regional. So you want to use customer managed keys when you're copying it across regions. But let's talk about a logical air gap vault. So if to create a logical air gap vault, I'm just going to give in a name, and I'm going to select logical air gap vault, and I define how many what's the minimum retention period of backup that gets stored in this logical air gap vault, and what is the maximum. And that's about it. And once I do that and I say create vault, it'll show up like this. So if I go back in here, as you can see, it already shows logged. It's in compliance mode. I'm already sending data to it. So that's how a logical air gap vault would do. And right now it is in this particular account and this particular region. Um, Logical air gap vault also, if you notice here, the encryption key, you can view it because this is managed by the AWS service team. So one of the threat vector that we commonly have seen in the field is your encryption keys. Your data is always re-encrypted, or your encryption keys are stolen, right? In that case, if you lose your encryption keys, your backups are still useless. So in this lag vault kind of a scenario, where your data is re-encrypted with your data is encrypted with the KMS keys held by the service team. So your threat vector there is mitigated. It is immutable, so nobody can re-encrypt or delete or do anything on that. And third, the most important thing is this lag vault now. I can use resource access manager, and I can share this vault with another account in a different org or within the same org. And what that means is, let's say I lose access to this account. When I share this lag vault to another account, I can bring up all my recovery points in another account and I can restore it. So if I look in here, I have like these are my recovery points that I have. I have some EC2 backups. I have some S3 backups, right? And this is through RAM-based sharing, which is your resource access manager sharing, or I can even use multi-party approval, and I'll come to that in a bit. So RAM-based sharing is where I'm going to share it with another account, right? So let me quickly go into one of my bunker account.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to pop up a few links that I think that you want us to share based on these. So here's a couple of blogs. I might have shown this one earlier about doing this logically air-gapped vault. So here's a good one. And then when you start talking about the multi-party thing, we have another blog to share with you as well. So take note of this. We do have another member of our She Builds team who is helping us with chat moderation. And so if you are on, Ife is our chat moderator. And Ife, if you don't mind, can you please copy this into the Twitch and YouTube chat so that people can access that more easily? Thank you. Okay, continue, Fatima. Great.
Sure. So when I come into this account, like my data bunker account, right? This account is in the same region. I shared that particular vault using the resource access manager. So if I go to access manager, I can create a resource share and then put that vault in that resource share and that account, and it will get shared with this particular account. So right now that lag vault is now shared here. So if I go into this lag vault, and remember, I'm in a totally different account. I'm in a bunker account. I can see everything here. And what this means is my RTO just got reduced drastically because prior to the release of this feature, we had to copy everything back to the to the account that we want to bring up, right? We have a recovery account, and we have to copy all of this data, these recovery points onto that account, and then perform the restores and then recovery, etc. So there was three operations: copy, restore, recovery. RTO was like through the roof. With this particular feature, what you're seeing is the RTO is reduced because the vault is there, it's secure. Even if it gets if the account is gone, the data is secure, it's immutable, it cannot be re-encrypted. All I have to do is share it with another account in the same org or a different org, and I have access to all of those recovery points. And now I can use infrastructure as a code and just perform the restore and bring my all my workloads up in this particular account, whichever account I designate.
Nice. Saving the day. Awesome.
Yes. Yes. So here I can pretty much go in. This is my recovery point, and if I say restore, I can restore the entire bucket. I can restore item level restore by giving the URI, and I can say whether I want to, put it in a new bucket or use any existing bucket in that. What keys I want to use, what role I want to use, and perform the restore backup. And the restore will run for hours depending upon the amount of data and the amount of objects that's there in this particular bucket. But that's a gist of it as to how you can perform a restore in a totally different account, in a different org, using just lag vault.
Cool. Is this another blog that you wanted to share, the restore testing for recovery validation?
Yeah, so I was just going to talk about restore testing next.
Perfect.
So what happens is, now that you have all of these resources ready for restores, right? One of the main things right now, especially in the financial industry, is recoverability of data, which is really, really key. And many of the insurance companies are also asking, even auditors, they're asking, forensic evidence to show me that your data is recoverable. And how would you show that, right? Which is why AWS Backup has this key feature called restore testing. What it does is you can create a restore testing plan, and it'll automatically perform the restore. It'll automatically spin up those resources necessary. Like if you select the EC2 or an S3 bucket for restore, it'll automatically create that new bucket. It'll restore all of the objects, and it'll tell you how long did that restore take? Was it successful or not? Did it fail? And it gives you an artifact, right? So now you know that, if you put this on a schedule, if and let's say one restore failed and you're notified of it, you know that, okay, let me go check, versus waiting for the event to occur, and then you go through the whole process of restores. Then you realize that, okay, my restore is not successful. That's not the situation you want to be in.
No.
And I've talked to many customers who let these restores run, and it can run for hours, right? Because they are like usually really large databases or large data sets. And after running through like 5, 6, or 7, 8 hours, it says restore not successful. And that's not the time you want to find that out. Which is why you have something called a restore testing plan. This is also another key feature within AWS Backup as a part of this whole ransomware resiliency strategy. So again, if you create a test plan and you want to define the frequency, like do you want to test this hourly? I mean, if it's like really critical, you want to test this hourly. Earlier, customers would run tests manually, but then they'll have to go through the whole deletion process because it spins up resources. Like if I restore an EC2 instance, it's going to create that EC2 with that particular army, and it's going to have all those EBS provision attached, and it's going to stay there unless somebody is just actively going and deleting those resources, and that can add up to the cost, right?
Right.
With restore testing, what you're doing is you're putting everything on a schedule, and that includes deleting them also.
Oh, nice.
So here you are going and saying, which specific vault you want to restore from, and which is from the last 7 days or the last one day, and which is the latest recovery point, or do you want to do some random recovery point, and then you create a restore testing plan. So typically it just runs on an everyday basis. It gives you an artifact as to, okay, was it successful or not? Like if I look at my existing one, I have not assigned resources to it, but if I assign resources to it, it will pretty much say that, okay, this restore testing took 26 minutes or 2 hours or 7 hours, etc. And then once it's done all of that, it auto destructs, like it deletes it cleans it up, and the next day it happens again. So you can have all of that notification sent and have that artifact collected, so you know that if that day comes, you are protected.
That is awesome. Lulls here. Gigi, never heard of restore testing before. And you were literally testing in production. Like you don't need to back up your dev accounts. So you were testing in production. So this is a great feature to have. Is this kind of new? When was this announced?
Yeah, it's probably a year plus old,
Okay.
not like super new, but it's been going on. And this again, most of these features that has been released by AWS Backup Service Team has been what was asked popularly from customers, right? So as this whole ransomware event thing grew, and what they saw, what they observed, that has been transferred to the service team, and most of these features are what customers have asked for. So you can clearly tell that that was a gap where they wanted that automated testing to show the recoverability of data, and now we have that. So yeah, so that's it's been used a lot by customers as far as I know, and something that they incorporate that into their everyday workflow, just like how they do their backups. You don't have to test every resource, but you want to identify your crown jewels, and you want to make sure there is some data to show that this testing is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also love that it deletes it for you. Thank you for, I forget to delete stuff all the time. So that's the
Yeah,
best part, I think.
yeah, exactly. Um, So I already talked about legal hold. Legal hold is your vault where you can either have a compliance uh, or a legal hold in your vault. Like, how long can you retain these recovery points for? Just like your S3 object lock, it's very similar to that. Any questions so far?
No, people have been saying thank you and you're teaching them things. So you're doing really, and I interrupt and ask questions because I can.
Absolutely. So, so another important thing that I want to talk about is, this was a recent feature release that we released during Reinforce, and it's called multi-party approval. And this is the first time AWS has released something like that. It's built by AWS organizations team in conjunction with their IDC, which is your Identity Control Center. And the first customer for multi-party approval is AWS Backup. So there are other AWS services that's going to come into place, to leverage this particular feature. But it's a first of its kind. So here is what you do: you go into your management account or your delegated account, you go into a multi-party approval, and this is where you create a team. Now, let's say you have that vault, right? You have that vault, and you want to designate a set of people who can perform that operation, who can perform the restore from that vault. And you want to build a quorum of people, and that's exactly what's the intention of having a multi-party approval system, and through basically a distributed approval process, and it not just to confine it to usually what happens is anybody with a role can go do whatever they want, and if that role is gone, if the role is hacked, then they'll have access to those resources. So with a multi-party approval system, what we are doing is we are putting in a couple of users, and you can define that how many users do you need in that system, and you create a team basically. When you create a team, you say that, okay, I need a team of backup approvers, and you add your approvers. So what you do is you can go and check all your users and up, start adding them here.
Okay. So these are users in IDC,
Yeah.
not IAM users.
No, so a multi-party approval is tightly integrated with IDC.
Okay.
So you have to have IDC set up in your management or your delegated account to be able to leverage this feature. That's a very important prereq that I wanted to classify. So you can add how many ever users here, and then you assign them, right? So, and then you say, how many minimum approvals do you need for this particular operation to complete? And that's where you say whether you want two or one or three. And then what happens when you create a team, all of these users will get an email sent to them. And then they have to approve that. And they have to join this team. And once, if I do this, it just is going to send it to me back. But I have it created here, as you can see. So all of them got an invitation. Every one of those users have to log in individually and accept that invitation, and they'll get into this team. So now that this team is formed, I can assign this team to a vault, right? So
There's also a question about pricing that we might hit here in a couple of minutes if you are comfortable with that.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Were they asking for pricing on a
Yeah.
specific resource or?
So unconditional surrender, great name, is asking if AWS has modified the way they charge for the Delta backups. So if your Delta is only 50 gigs, but your whole thing is 200, do you get charged for the 200 or the 50?
Okay, so the way pricing works is that, and let me take an example. Like let's talk about EBS. And some of the services work through the orchestration plane, and some of them through the data plane. So with data plane, there's a bit of data movement, but on the orchestration side, like for EBS, all AWS Backup is doing is it's doing a create snapshot API, and it's doing it right. So whatever the snapshot price you're paying for that particular operation, and then the subsequent snapshot is just incrementals that you're paying, that same thing transfers to AWS Backup too. So yes, you're only paying for incrementals. Your first snapshot will be a full snapshot. Every subsequent snapshot is an incremental, and you're paying just for the incremental charges. Exactly whatever is working on ABS is we are just orchestrating, so there is nothing different. So it's like 5 cents per gig. It's what is if you see the AWS Backup pricing page, it's 5 cents per gig for, and you don't pay for anything else. You just pay for the storage. So EBS, EFS, any of those things, it might vary slightly across services, but for the most part, I've seen that EC2, EBS, S3, all of them are 5 cents per gig. But if you're using lag vault, it will be like 5.75 cents, like it's something like that. So there's an extra 0.075 cents extra, but that's a pricing, and I can share the AWS Backup pricing page.
Okay. And we can have Ife, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
drop that in for us. So the AWS backup pricing page, I can find it too. I think it's this. Perfect. You're fast.
Yeah.
So here it is.
Yes, that's the one. And it's different services, different features here. Like your backup audit manager will come at a slightly different cost, but it's to put things in perspective, it's like few dollars for like thousands of operations, thousands of requests. So it's really negligible in that perspective, especially for something like backup audit manager, where you're getting a report of the backup history of your entire organization and all of your accounts. So it's well worth it. Other than that, you're paying for storage, you're paying for that logical air gap vault. Of course, if you're doing a restore testing, there is a small price to pay for that too, make sure that gets those, because the services get spun up and then they get deleted, but they are very active for a very short duration of time, so you should not be breaking the bank doing restore testing.
Awesome.
Yeah. So typically what happens is, when I go into my data bunker account, I can just say that, let's say I lost access to my workload account and now I'm in my bunker account. I can request that vault access. I can pretty much say that this is a ARN of that vault. So this is my vault. So this is the ARN of my vault, and I can give it a name and then say send request. It will now send request to all of those three people and ask them to approve. Once those three people, and I have to like log into three different accounts to do that online, but once those three people approve it, it will show up here. It'll show up status is approved, and you can pretty much click on that and get access to the lag wall. So now we are protecting it. So in the previous screen, when I talked about resource access manager, it can pretty much access it because I just gave open access, right? I just said this account can access this vault, and this account, it just automatically shows up. Now, what if I don't want to do that and just open it up, but have somebody approve that operation? Then I'm thinking about multi-party approval, where there is some sort of an approval process for somebody to access a vault or to perform restore operations on it. And that is, again, if you just notice the layers of security that's built to protect your recovery points or backups, is just like it just goes layer after layer. And how much do you want to protect? Like how many layers? It's like the defense in depth strategy that we're redefining here.
Absolutely. So, a quick question. So, a bunker account, I've never had one of those in my past life as a customer. Where does that sit? And do you like only give a few people access to that? Like, is that something that you
Yeah,
really, yeah,
protect. Yeah, you hold it close to your chest, right? So you don't want to have an open IAM role and say that, okay, this bunker account, all of you guys who are doing the backups here, you have access to the bunker account. No, that's not the strategy we want to use. This is in direct opposition to what was implemented on premises for disaster recovery, because disaster recovery, that was a scenario. Everybody had access because, should a disaster happen, anybody and everybody could go access that resources in a different region or something. Out here, you initially before this MPA, multi-party approval and lag vault, what essentially happened is you want to roll with an STS token, right, which can be active for like 24 to 48 hours or something to be able to perform that quick operation, and that role is not accessible anymore. So you are not assigning a role indefinitely to that particular account, but that role gets assigned for like as a token service or like a temporary credentials for that designated number of hours, and then it's gone. And that's the way we want to think about bunker account. It's not open to all. It's open to one for a very restricted time to perform a test or certify or approve, and then out of it.
nice. Okay. Thank you for explaining that. I've never been given access to a bunker account. So, what about whenever these people get notified with the multi-party approval?
Approval.
Are they notified that these come in, or do we need to hook in like an SNS, or how do they know they need to go push a button?
They get emails
Okay.
immediately. So as soon as somebody requests this vault access, let's say an event occurred and somebody clicked on this request vault access, all the three email accounts will get this email saying that approve. And once you click approve, it says pending approval. That's why it's saying pending approval. Once all those three people who have those email invitations, once they click approve, that's when it happens. So it's on notification, but then, they need to be on top of their email, especially if there's an event or something.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much a lot of the stuff that I've covered. I also have, I mean, you can also create a report plan to say that do you want to report of all your backup jobs, your restore jobs, your copy jobs, your compliance or resource compliant jobs. So we do have this as well. So if you want to click a report of all the backup jobs in this particular region, you can put it in an S3 bucket. You can choose a file format and create a report plan. And you can feed this report plan to a Tableau dashboard and have that all. And we have had custom blogs. Um, I didn't have that link ready, but I'll send that too, where we can build a centralized reporting scheme too, because right now this is for this particular account across regions, but then if you want to do it across multiple accounts, we want to build a centralized reporting plan. So there is a blog for that too. I'll find that out. Apart from that, yeah, we went through most of the stuff here.
Awesome. Great. So then, anyone watching, I hope that you learned something today. Maybe drop in what you think is the most important learning that you had, maybe the next thing that you're going to go check out. Would love to hear what you found valuable. It's especially valuable for Fatima, who lives in this space at work.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a very interesting space. And most of the time, the conversation I have, Candace, is after. So first, I have a lot of conversation where they'll say this is expensive, and then the second time when they're talking, they're like, okay, there has been an event, let's re-architect. And cost is not on the table at that point of time. Yes, we want to do it in a cost optimized way, but a disruption can actually affect business, your reputation, your brand name. There is a monetary value attached to it, and there is fines that you need to pay, especially in the financial industry. So then it's a different conversation that comes up if there is an event, right? And I've had a lot of customers I've worked with where I say that, okay, there was an event, what can we do better?
Yeah.
How can we re-architect? And most times when I have the initial conversations, that's what I start off with. Is it the cost or is it the protection? What do we want to emphasize on? And I would say that it's worth it to have a recovery strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're going to get, the ransom, find, all of those sorts of things. When you start adding those up, I think I would pay a little bit extra
Yeah,
for the peace of mind.
yeah.
Resource links shared today. Awesome. So Ife is going to drop some more links into YouTube so that you can access those. And then we got another question from Unconditional Surrender. And they are asking, what goes into restore testing? Do you have to write scripts to do some kind of checksum on restore testing jobs? I don't think
Yeah.
so, but usually.
No, yeah. So restore testing within AWS Backup. So that's what customers were doing prior to the release of restore testing, right? They had to automatically, have Lambda and everything, detect a recovery point based on the tag name, and then perform a restore operation. When the restore operation is successful, again, a notification gets sent out and all that. All of that is automated through restore testing for you. So you don't have to write any script, anything. All you have to do is go create the plan and say that do a restore testing of all these resources in my vault or some specified resources on a daily basis, and that gets set up for you. So do check it out. It's in the AWS Backup Console.
Awesome. Good. Thank you for clarifying that. I thought it was all magical and automated for us, but you're the expert. So awesome. Any parting words? Other questions coming in from our audience? We're happy to answer those. We've got about 10 more minutes left where we can drop a little bit early. I think I have one other question. This is one that I wrote down and I forgot to mention. So
Sure.
what other, let's see, what is my question? How does AWS Backup integrate with other AWS security resources? So Security Hub, GuardDuty, like all of those security suite of things, where does this kind of fit in?
So, from a security perspective, we rely heavily on IAM, right? But then, if you want to use GuardDuty for S3 to perform any malware analysis, go ahead. Yeah, that can be a separate integration. But AWS Backup with security, I mean, yes, it's tightly integrated with all of the security services like IAM, KMS, etc. If you specifically ask GuardDuty, not directly integrated, but you can set it up using Lambda. There was one another thing I need to mention. So as you're performing this restore testing, what if your backups are infiltrated? And what that means is whatever is happening on the source can get transferred to your destination, right? So your restore is successful, but it's still infiltrated, and that backup could be useless. So there's another layer where you can do a malware analysis of those recovery points. And right now you can do it with GuardDuty. GuardDuty supports scanning your S3 backups, but we have blogs out there with Elastio, which is our third-party partner that we integrated with. It will automatically, I mean, there's a step of automation that we set up based on recovery points. We'll take that recovery point and a malware analysis is run to check for any modified signatures or, what if any file has changed automatically. And they tested across 1,500 ransomware, as 1,500 signatures. So malware analysis is also a key part of this defense in depth strategy. So as you're doing the restore testing plan, it's not enough that the restore is successful. It should be also that the data is not corrupted.
Right. Yeah,
So,
it's all important.
so think about that too.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I didn't see anything else come in from our viewers, which is great. I learned stuff today. I appreciate you walking us through this and showing us how these things work.
Absolutely.
And I hope that we see more viewers coming up. We are not going to be on next week. So we're on Mondays every week, same time, which is 11:30 Central. Figure out your time zone. I'm not good at time zone math. Next week we're off. It's Labor Day here in the United States. And then the week after that, we will be back, I think, with some more Agent Core. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks when we're back on the show. So hopefully you can watch that. Share this link, this episode with your friends so that they can learn more about ransomware, and hopefully this is just educational for you and you don't have to deal with it. So
Yeah. Yes, I hope none of you have to deal with it, but I hope you're all prepared for it or prepared to have the conversation about it. So go build.
yeah, hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much, Fatima, for sharing all of your knowledge with us today and for being on the show. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And I think that we will see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kandyce. This
Of
is
course.
lovely.
Good. Bye, everyone.